Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's monthly picket action for U.S. Canada Hands Off Venezuela, No to Sanctions on Venezuela. I'm joining today from the unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam Coast Salish Indigenous Nations here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. My name is Alison BODINE. I am the coordinator of Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice Venezuela Solidarity Campaign and author of the book Revolution and Counter-Revolution in Venezuela from Battle of Ideas Press. I am honored to chair an important panel today discussing U.S. sanctions, elections, and democracy in Venezuela, featuring CAMILLA FABRI SAAB, William CAMACARO, ROIGAR LOPEZ, and then greetings from individuals and activists across North America in solidarity with Venezuela. Today is the 39th consecutive monthly picket action, and I have an important announcement about the organizing of these actions. For the last 39 months, Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice Venezuela Solidarity Campaign, the Venezuela Peace Committee in Winnipeg, and Just Peace Advocates have all come together in order to organize the monthly picket actions. For over 3 years, these successful actions have brought together thousands of people in solidarity with Venezuela from across North America, Venezuela itself, and Latin America, and around the world. And now these online picket actions and a monthly webinar are going to be organized by the Venezuela Solidarity Network, a new North America-based network of organizations and individuals working to defend Venezuela's sovereignty and self-determination against U.S. government-led sanctions and attacks. I'll put information in the chat about how to join the network and our basis of unity, and I encourage everyone to join the newly formed Venezuela Solidarity Network and help us in organizing upcoming events, some of which you'll hear about later today. We have an excellent picket action in front of us, and with, as I mentioned before, the theme of U.S. sanctions, elections, and democracy in Venezuela. This is because presidential elections are being held in Venezuela on July 28th, so in about 2 months from now. In the lead up to the election, the U.S. government and their allies are already interfering in Venezuela's democratic process. Well, they really have been continuously since the beginning of the Bolivarian Revolution with the election of Comandante Hugo Chavez in 1998. But they've increased their interventions. And this is a violation of Venezuela's sovereignty and self-determination. For example, as reported by Reuters, quote, "The Biden administration is engaging with Venezuelan stakeholders as well as regional and European partners in a bid to keep the electoral process on track, but expects additional difficulties as the July 28th vote approaches." And this is something that an anonymous official told Reuters. The question is, why is the U.S. government tracking and trying to keep the electoral process on track in Venezuela? This is blatant interference in Venezuela's internal affairs. And on top of this, the U.S. government has continued to impose cruel sanctions and a blockade on Venezuela. By imposing hardship on the people of Venezuela through the collective punishment of sanctions, the U.S. government is attempting to bring about the overthrow of the democratically elected government of President Maduro. So that's why we've gathered here today to hear directly from people organizing in Venezuela about how the people of Venezuela have continued to fight back against the brutal U.S. sanctions and blockade, and how they're mobilizing in the streets today, and especially now in the lead up to the presidential election, to defend their democracy, their elections, and their right to self-determination. So we have a really excellent panel lined up to discuss this important topic, the first of which, without further ado, I will introduce, is CAMILLA FABRI SAAB. CAMILLA is a human rights advocate, the wife of former U.S.-held political prisoner Alex Saab, and spokesperson for Movimiento Futuro, or Future Movement, in Venezuela. Thank you so much, CAMILLA, for making time to come and speak to us all here today.
To greet you, Alison. And I'd like to greet everyone, thank all of the organizers, moderators, to express my thanks to William CAMACARO, ROIGAR LOPEZ, whom I know they have always been fighting together with me for the liberation of my husband, Alex Saab. And as you mentioned, Alison, we achieved this on December 20th of 2023. And I want to thank all of you, everything you share, your analysis and your reflections on Venezuela. For today, I've brought a video that I wanted to share with you because there is an undeniable fact that perhaps worldwide there's an attempt to make invisible and make less obvious. So Alison, could you play the video? And then we can continue with the Picket.
Nosotros tenemos un candidato, Nicolás Maduro Moro.
We have a candidate.
Vamos hacia el futuro, que aquí seguimos luchando con Maduro.
Este año 2024 es año de victoria.
This year, 2024, it's the year of victory.
No quererte, si por defenderte yo daría mi vida. Estamos con Maduro. El hijo de buen puro.
Aquí nadie se rinde, aquí nadie se vende, aquí estamos peleando, esta tierra se defiende. La sostenía el comandante Chávez invencible, estamos con Maduro y con esto no es posible.
¡Que viva nuestra patria amada! ¡Que viva Chávez! ¡Hasta la victoria siempre!
Long live Chavez and our beloved country.
Venezuela,
victory
como
on
no quererte, si por defenderte yo daría mi vida. Ay, mi Venezuela, como no adorarte, si para vivirte yo voy a cuidarte.
Patria para siempre, patria para nuestros hijos.
Homeland forever, the homeland for our children.
Gracias, Alison.
Thank you, Alison. So this video is undeniably showcasing something that they want to hide, which is the support that our candidate, our president, Nicolás Maduro, has in the streets, the shows of love and affection that he receives from the Venezuelan people. The Venezuelan people are in the large majorities left-wing, and they defend Chavez, and they take the streets to defend and to show their support for the president, Nicolás Maduro. And why is this? Because those who suffered and still have on their backs more than 930 coercive unilateral measures, the inaptly named sanctions, and it's the Venezuelan people, and they know this. And it is very clear that it was the right that demanded the sanctions were imposed. They are extremist and anti-constitutional of the so-called people with traditional last names, as people call them here. The same extremist right that in 2008 demanded the military intervention in Venezuela, a genocide that without any shame, they are murdering entire families. And I don't want to lose a chance to also express all of my love to the Palestinian people and to speak against the genocide. It must stop right now. I have here before me, and I would like to share this also with you. I have here, I don't know if you can see it, but I will share this afterwards. I have here with me a key document, something that I read about 2 days ago, where Maria Corina Machado asked Netanyahu to invade Venezuela, signed by her on December 4, 2018. And while this lady was signing this request asking Netanyahu to invade Venezuela. At the same time, the Bolivarian government was involved in administrative work for the defense of the territory, defending ExxonMobil, different companies that are constantly trying to take over territory illegally and violating agreements between Venezuela and Guyana. But all of the human rights organizations, all of the social movements, the rapporteur of the UN that accompany Venezuela and the Venezuelan people in the struggle against these illegal sanctions, all of them have bared witness to the multiple tasks, the work that the government has taken on to ensure that the rights, the voting rights of the Venezuelan people are respected and upheld. And with a lot of effort, Venezuela overcomes economic difficulties and is today projected as one of the countries of greatest growth in the region. And this is because we believe firmly in the construction of a multipolar world. Sanctions have even harmed companies themselves in the US. And a few months ago, when sanctions were renewed, they were reimposed. It was these businessmen themselves who decided to establish agreements with Venezuela. They are tired of these coercive measures. So Venezuela is opening its arms to the world, and we do not want extremist agendas. We do not want war-mongering agendas. The people defend firmly with all of the love. They are defending the joy that they keep trying to steal from them. And investors know of the great potential of Venezuela, and they are willing to work with respect in a multipolar world. If someone were to ask me how Venezuela is preparing itself for the elections, the answer is very easy. No one will rob the joy and the progress of a conscious and aware people. Hope is there in the streets, and I have seen this. This hope is personified in President Nicolas Maduro. On July 28th, we'll have a great success. It will be the success and the conquest of a committed candidate, a loyal candidate, full of love, who ensures and defends peace in our country. He is the candidate of hope, of people, and of justice. So the other speakers will surely share further. Roy Lopez will explain more on this dynamic, but I am certain, and I can say this with a lot of clarity, that the Venezuelan people and everyone in Venezuela is very much aware of this. And on July 28th, we'll have once again a victory for the peoples. Thank you very much.
Venceremos, siempre.
Venceremos. We will win. It's true. Camilla, thank you so much for those words today and for sharing with us some about the campaign and how it is going in the shadow and under the pressure of U.S. intervention and sanctions. It's very inspiring to hear. And thank you as well for expressing your solidarity with the people of Palestine who are fighting today against genocide and also in a struggle for their self-determination and sovereignty, and their against unfathomable odds and destruction. Our hearts are not far from Palestine, but also with the people of Venezuela who face collective punishment as well. Next, I want to welcome Roy, who is here with us, also from Venezuela. Roy is a communications specialist that we also got to know each other in the victorious struggle for freedom for Alex Saab. And that campaign, of course, continues to inspire us and ignite us today in its victory. And I thank you for coming to join and share a bit of your perspective here today as well.
Bueno, buenas noches. Saludos, Alison.
Good evening and greetings for everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Alison, for all the effort that you've been doing for these 39 dates of action. I'd like to start by reinforcing everything that has been said by Camilla Fabri. We are in the middle of an election process. We're very close to the elections, which is probably one of the most important elections in the history of Venezuela. We are suffering from a threat, not only a threat, it's a war that we've been suffering for some years now, with more than 930 measures that had been imposed by the United States and the European Union, and some countries, included some Latin American countries such as Panama, that have applied some coercive measures against Venezuela. This places us in a very complicated situation because these measures have been declared illegal by the UN. These are measures that cause a lot of damage to the people. Although at the beginning of the sanctions, some countries such as the United States and Venezuelan opposition, and unfortunately, the European Union yesterday expressed a communique saying that these sanctions did not affect the people of Venezuela. This was actually quite funny. In 2017, 2018, and 2019, these sanctions did not exist anymore, and now Europe is saying such a thing. Why is this happening? Because the National Council of Election has withdrawn the invitations for the international observers of the European Union, because the United States, some states decided to withdraw their sanctions, but this did not happen. Therefore, the invitations are withdrawn. If so many dozens of people hadn't died due to these sanctions against the national government and the Venezuelan people, this would be just like a comment, but this is really something much more serious. According to, from what is happening in the election, the communication issue is crucial today to express what's happening with this election battle. Chavism, for more than 25 years, has done a territorial work that has been very extensive. It's a popular organization that is huge. And this is something that the right wing has never been able to do in Venezuela. And that popular organization that has promoted Chavism and the revolution is something that neither the United States or other states have been able to understand. They thought that by implementing sanctions, they were going to raise the people against the government of Chavez. And this was absolutely opposite. So we have a person that it's not we have a person that is Marina Corina Machado that is not eligible to be a candidate. And we know that he has been receiving money from an American lobby. This money was coming mainly through a man called William Barr, who was the general prosecutor in the United States. And we have proof that in 2023, she received more than $3 million, exactly 3.2 million, to have access to her campaign. And the worst part is that she received this money knowing that she was not eligible to be a candidate. So I don't know how she was able to lie to this American lobby and these people that gave her the money in order to create a campaign that was not real, that was imaginary, because she knew she was not eligible. And this could even become an electoral crime, because she was she decided to be a candidate when she was not able to do it until the 2029 at least. When in 2015 she represented Panama as national deputy, representing Panama, not Venezuela. This created her inhabilitation to become a candidate. So nonetheless, she managed to have a primary election with at least 2 candidates that were also not eligible. And it's been said that at least 600,000 people voted, and in the final document, there were 2 million votes. So this number has been raising, and today they're saying that is 3 million Venezuelans voted for her, which is not the truth. She is committing this crime, and also now there is a public letter in her social media that shows that she had asked for support to the Israeli government, especially to Netanyahu, in order to invade Venezuela, as Camilla Fabri already mentioned, which represents a terrible crime. Just the fact of sending a letter to any country in the world asking for that deserves a real punishment. But I don't know if you understand that there are 13 democratic candidates, and there's one imaginary candidate who's doing this campaign. So what is happening right now? We have our elections coming up on the 28th of July. The European Union is not invited. This is not ended. The conversations are still going on, because this is a government that has always been open to dialogue. And they are not the only observers. There are observers from the United States, and they always come. Then we have observers from different social and political movements from the five different continents. We are talking about hundreds of people that validate our elections. Furthermore, last week we had a declaration of the former director of the process of election. He is part of the opposition. He said in an interview that for these sectors of the opposition, it seems like he says that it's impossible to commit fraud in Venezuela's election. He is part from the opposition and he is saying this. So, taking all these aspects into account, the opposition has already been committing fraud. And I wanted to use this time just in order to alert everybody who's here today and those who can replicate this information as well, that the opposition led by this lady who has also called for violence in our country with different people. These people that are supporting this woman have been saying that there will be an election fraud. We are 2 months away from the elections and they're already saying that. And this is because the numbers are not good for them. There's no way they can have all the structure that they need in all the states in order to be able to have the right amount of votes. So what they are doing is they're calling for some sort of rebellion. And of course, we know that the results will be favorable for our government. Even the United States have said this. And they are waiting to build a narrative so that this lady can self-determine herself as a president. This has been a very terrible project, and we are about to lose one of the main foreign companies, and everything related to and this is related to the funds that Venezuela receive. So for the revolution, it's quite inspiring that the victory will bring about stability, that despite the sanctions, and the sanctions have been reinforced, many companies are asking for permission to work in Venezuela. Many projects, such as oil projects, for at least 5 years have been asked. They want to start working in our country. That is not something that you do in a country that has no stability, for example. So big companies such as Exxon, etc., are looking forward to invest in our country. So our people are very clear about what they want. We're not going to allow new violent episodes in our country. And of course, we are hoping that starting on the 28th, the opposition can acknowledge the election results and that peace lives in our country. I want to thank again and again, I denounce that they are saying all these unreal things before the elections. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roy, for explaining that and helping us work through the reality of how serious it is. It could be, you know, taken not so seriously when the US government or the EU or Canada says there's going to be fraud in Venezuela and begins these warnings, but it is intervention in the electoral process. And it is a signal very strongly that the US government, once again, with their allies, will not accept Venezuela's democracy and will in fact say that there is fraud if their candidate, their chosen candidate of the right wing, does not win the election. And so, you know, they are doing their job very well of already beginning that propaganda and that, you know, attack on Venezuela's democratic process, which, if we'll remember, former US President Jimmy Carter's institution visited Venezuela under the Bolivarian revolutionary process and said that Venezuela's electoral process was the best in the world. And in a second, we will hear from William, and then we'll also talk about some opportunities to observe Venezuela's electoral process with your own eyes. And I think as people in North America, that's something that's critically important, is that we go to Venezuela and see the electoral process and are able to combat the media lies that are being told, which we are working with you every day to do so. And Roy, we really appreciate all of your work, especially in the online space where we are able to collaborate across borders in telling the truth of what's happening in Venezuela. So thank you very much. For our final panelist today, we have William CAMACARO. William is joining us from New York City, but he's a Venezuelan living in New York. He is the founder of the Alberto Lovera Bolivarian Circle in New York City. He is an organizer with the Alliance for Global Justice and is also with the Council on Hemispheric Affairs. And William, it is great to have your perspective on today's webinar and Picket Action. Welcome.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you very much. I just want to mention a few things that I feel are extremely important. And I think that is more for Roger to answer. I'm just going to drop the ball because basically the Venezuelan opposition have been showing a huge demo, you know, in quote, where the Maria Corina Machado have been on the street with followers. And we know that those videos are basically fabricated, that are completely fake, that they have not been they have not been able to get enough people in every single demo that they have been able to organize in Venezuela. Also, seems that this is not a question of for them, it's not question of electoral process. They have something else. They are planning something else. So what do you think that they are planning? What do you think that is behind all this strange behavior behind the Corina Machado, saying that she will not be president, but then, yes, she will be president, saying that the person that is running is the old guy, Edmundo, and suddenly say, no, I'm running, and the 28th, I will be the president. So it's a very strange the way that they are running and her candidate. And basically, seems to me that they want a confrontation with some Venezuelan institution because they have been violating the institutionality of the electoral process. So it would be great to go over those issues because it's obvious that they are looking for a confrontation. And the other thing that I really found very interesting is that when President Maduro, basically, when Venezuela government initiated investigation about Teresa Laizami and other people that were involved in the cryptocurrency scandal, seems to me that the population really support what happened, what the government did. And seems to me that in the beginning, there was a huge demonstration of support to the Venezuelan president, because what's basically the establishment was responding to the corruption in the country. So those are questions. I don't know if Camilla and Roger can answer some of them, but I feel that it's very important. I was so surprised basically to see in the beginning the huge demo that, the amount of people that went to the street to support Nicolás Maduro in Caracas. And I think that a lot of people were surprised. I think that even I sent that through email, through Twitter, that the demo that was organized May 1st, the worker, in the Day of the Workers, was extremely good because it was one of the best one in years. I don't know, Roy, you want to say something about it, or Camila?
Roy, I think maybe had to step out for a minute. His camera is off, so.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
it's here. Okay, sounds good. Do you have any comments that you're able to make now, Roy? Your microphone is on mute.
I don't see it, yes.
Ready. I'm ready.
Okay.
Comentaba en este momento, en mi intervención anterior, que
What I was sharing before, my previous comments, I was saying that the sanctions, far from achieving the goal of popular uprising against the government, what it achieved was further unity between the people. And this May 1st was an impressive moment for us. The number of people who took the streets on May 1st, it was one of the largest demonstrations that I remember of the latest few years. These have been very difficult years, even in terms of the production of fuel to mobilize people, just going to work and also going to a mobilization to the streets, and the stability that we managed to ensure, the increase of the wages of the workers that have also grown in the last few years. The estimate is that nowadays Venezuelan families that a few years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, they would produce 20, 30, maybe 50, no more than $100 a family, a whole family, to sustain themselves. Nowadays, an average family manages to have an income of more than $400 US dollars a month, which when you have services here in Venezuela, such as water, electricity, they're so cheap here. So this means that money is enough, and that means people are motivated. So on May 1st, we managed to have a huge demonstration.
Yo desde aquí pude apreciar lo grande que fue.
So I wanted to point out that, yes, even from here, from far away, I could appreciate the size of the mobilization. And the whole day, I was looking at pictures and videos, and I could see it was truly huge.
Sí, definitivamente la situación económica ha cambiado.
I want to say that, yes, most definitely, the economic situation has changed. I was in Venezuela in 2020 during the crisis of fuel. There was no gas on the homes to cook. There were several issues there, but this situation has changed dramatically. Many products are now available, but people are still suffering the impact of the economic war, and mainly the most vulnerable sectors. Another thing I want to say that I always acknowledge is that during those years, I swore that President Maduro would fall. And I remember that the point of no return was when the Iran oil ships arrived, and that was work of Alex Saab. Those oil ships that arrived in 2020, they arrived at the most critical moment. It was an extremely critical time. There was no fuel, absolutely nowhere to drive on the streets, to cook. I remember that from where I was at the time, to travel to San Carlos, it was a 2-hour trip. And in order to do that, it was a very complicated logistic arrangement, because I had to either have extra fuel or to plan beforehand where it would be possible to get fuel. So it was a very, very difficult operation. Very few weeks after the arrival of these ships, the change was evident, and we could see the economy growing again. And a few things started showing up again. The fuel and gas were once again available. But this was an extremely difficult situation. In Venezuela, 2 points were extremely difficult for the people: that process and the electricity attack. It's impossible to imagine what it's like in a city like Caracas to not have electricity, to go up and down 8 flights of stairs, to travel so far to get water, not having water available at your home. It was terrible. And still, Venezuela overcame those difficulties, and here we are. So these were a few comments that I wanted to share for people to understand that what we've gone through in Venezuela hasn't been easy.
Si puedo, quiero añadir algo.
If I may, there's something I'd like to add on what you were sharing, Will. I think the year 2020 was a difficult year for our president, also because of all of the different magnitude attempts, the attempts to assassinate the president. We cannot forget that the arrival of the ships with fuel that, of course, would be used for ambulances. At the time, there was a COVID crisis, and the period of the pandemic had an impact on the whole world, of course. And imagine having a fuel shortage at the time that patients needed it the most. So this was a very complicated time. So the arrival of this fuel was vital for the Venezuelan people. Before this, in May 2020, there was also the operation by which terrorists arrived to Venezuela. They had signed an agreement with Juan Guaido, and his Narnian government, his imaginary government, and they were here to kill our president. They arrived through the coast to attack the president. Of course, it was a much larger operation, and the attempt here was to kill the leaders of the Bolivarian Revolution, of the Venezuelan government. And if we consider that the attempts of magnitude have continued happening, in 2023, there were 5 attempts of magnitude. We cannot forget that on April 25th, the day that the president was going to present his candidacy, there were 2 terrorists of the party, opposition party, that had been hired, of course, as symbol puppets. Clearly, they are not the ones who planned this, but there they were with their guns, supposedly present to shoot at the people, to create absolute chaos. But at the same time, they were 20 meters away from the stand of the president. So of course, the plan was a different one. And our president is very, very courageous, because he continues going to the streets, even though his life, day after day, continues being in danger. So that's the only thing I wanted to add. Yes, that's right. That's something that we need to add. They keep talking here about having clean, transparent elections, and clean and transparent elections have to do mainly with ensuring the safety of the head of state.
Como Estados Unidos, está pidiendo por la cabeza del presidente 15 millones de
When
dólares.
a head of state, such as the one from the US, puts a price on the head of a president and when the president is constantly threatened, we cannot say that it's a clean and transparent process. It's completely illogical to talk about it in these terms when they are the first responsibles of dirtying this process.
William, I see you're putting in the chat. I'll share the poster as well. We can announce that now. On the topic of assassination attempts against the democratically elected president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, when we talk about U.S. attempted invasions in Venezuela through what is called today the Bay of Piglets, and failed attempts. We also need to mobilize against these to increase their visibility for people in the United States to understand better the role of the US government in interfering in the internal affairs of Venezuela and in trying to bring instability and, yes, in trying to assassinate and overthrow a democratically elected president, something that is not unfamiliar to many people around the world that have been under the boot of the United States or have faced intervention in their countries from US imperialism or their allies, including Canada. But part of this is our important response. So William put in the chat information regarding this protest, which is taking place on Monday, June 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time at the U.S. Mission to the United Nations in New York City, where a petition will be delivered, and we can put the link, or that's actually, I think the link William already put for this petition in the chat. This is the petition condemning the U.S.'s role in these assassination plots against President Nicolas Maduro and requesting an international investigation into them in defense of Venezuela's sovereignty. And so we'll put the links in the chat, but that's on the 24th in New York City. In conjunction with this protest, we'll also be asking people, the Alliance for Global Justice and Venezuela Solidarity Network are also asking people to organize protests or actions in their own town. So I'll put the information for the one in New York in the chat, but please stay tuned for a call to action to all of us to also take actions in our own cities and join in this important campaign. And part of that will also be that week will be the next monthly Picket online action webinar of the Venezuela Solidarity Network, which will take place on Tuesday, June 25th, in conjunction with these actions. So, William, back to you. If you had anything else that you wanted to add, I just wanted to do that announcement.
No, it's okay. For now, I'm fine. So.
Okay, excellent. So let me press send on this message here, and we can go on to some more announcements. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Venezuela Solidarity Network is a newly formed network of organizations and individuals fighting in defense of Venezuela's sovereignty and self-determination. We have a basis of unity and have many individuals and organizations signed in and participating, including Task Force of the Americas, Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice, Code Pink, the Alliance for Global Justice, the Minnesota Anti-War Committee, and others, and really encourage people to join in and also get involved with organizing for Venezuela and in solidarity with Venezuela. So in the chat now is a link to the website of the Venezuela Solidarity Network, which includes our basis of unity, the Facebook profile and the Instagram to help us share out events and actions taking place. So I encourage people to follow those pages on social media, and on the website, you'll find a form to fill out if you'd like to join the Venezuela Solidarity Network, of which I encourage everyone to do so and to take action in order to do so. I also want to announce an upcoming delegation to Venezuela, and that is being organized by the Alliance for Global Justice, Venezuela, celebrating 22 years of sovereignty and popular power, taking place at a time when we can witness popular democracy in action in Venezuela, see what it's like to be in Venezuela during a presidential election, and that is July 21st through 31st of this year. And you can see the poster here, and I'll put in the chat all the information for how to join the delegation. I know the deadline to apply is coming up quickly, so I encourage you, if this is even like a consideration that you might be able to participate and join in, please do, and please share with anyone who has expressed interest or had questions about Venezuela. Now is a really important time to go to Venezuela and to see what it's like. And there's, in fact, I would say no better time than during an election when people are mobilized on the streets, talking about the election and talking about how they want to carry forward and exercise their democracy and extend the gains made under the Bolivarian revolutionary process. So I really encourage people to go and visit Venezuela on this delegation with the Alliance for Global Justice. I'm wondering, Camilla, thank you so much for sharing and joining us here today. If you might be able, I know you've had a very busy last few months, but is there anything that you are able to share, would like to share with us all today about what it's been like to have Alex back in Venezuela and the work that you've been doing together?
Yes, of course, Alison. It's been truly the most amazing thing that has happened in my life. We started as a family to live again and to create new memories. The girls, I always talk about this, from what I see from them in the impact in their lives. Even at school, they were very shy girls, quite closed, and they felt they weren't safe, and they weren't confident about themselves. And just a few weeks after their dad came back, even their teacher told us that the girls were feeling more confident, that they were happier, that they were sharing with the other kids. So I saw a very important change in my kids' lives right away. And of course, these make us happy. At the very beginning was a little bit complicated, the relationship between Alex and Charlotte, the youngest of our girls, because when he was kidnapped, she was only 5 months old. So when Alex came back, she was already 4 years old. So for her, her dad was a complete stranger. But day after day, Alex has worked hard to seduce her, just to have her love back, and now they are inseparable. But at the very beginning, it was a bit complicated. I must say as well that Alex right away started working. He hasn't rested at all, and I think that is through his work that he is healing himself, because these are not there are not easy injuries to heal. He has gone through so much, but now we're in the healing process and we're focusing on living, and we are experiencing every moment in a different way. Now life has a different value, and obviously I'm not ever gonna get away from him. And I want to thank you, Alison, because your work and the work of all the movements around the world and in Venezuela that were supporting Alex were crucial for him to resist, and also for him not to feel alone in his struggle. And I think this has been a very important aspect. Alex always said that the worst that can happen to a political prisoner is to be forgotten, and he never felt alone because there was a whole movement outside, brothers and sisters that were supporting him, that were writing letters to him, and that were writing protest letters asking for his liberation. And this was a real motivation for him to keep on going and keep on resisting. Thank you, Alison, for everything you're doing, not only for us, but for all the oppressed peoples in the world. And yeah, all your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla. Really, our organizing in the US and Canada would not be possible if people under the brunt of sanctions, wars, military inventions, bombs, were not resisting. And so we also thank you for your resistance and leadership and organizing and the day-to-day work that I know you are doing, and others in Venezuela and around the world. So I think we'll just see if there's any closing comments from any of our panelists tonight, and then we can go on to the section where we can check in with a few folks, see if we have some greetings, and then do a group photo at the end, a tradition that we will continue to carry on, coming together to join our voices. So next, just Roy, is there anything you would like to say to close out the panel at today's action?
I just want to say once again, thank you to Alison and for this time, and everybody who was here today, Camilla and William, and everybody who is participating on the chat, all these people who are interested and are worried about Venezuela, but not only worried, but also acting in favor of Venezuela. From here, we send you our biggest hug, and we are looking forward to receiving this delegation that's coming to Venezuela so that they can see the reality of Venezuela. You will see that many things are said in the medias or political speakers of the opposition. Many things that are said from are completely different from the reality we live here in Venezuela. You're all welcome here.
Thank you very much. And William, is there anything you'd like to say to
very brief. Gracias, Roy, Camila.
Thank you, Roy and Camila. I hope to see you soon in Venezuela. And we hope to be able to have beautiful conversations with everybody. There are people that are coming from very far away, and you know that they make a great effort to get to Venezuela. So it's great that you can join them and have conversations with them, people that are working with our social movements. And I send you a big hug. We'll see you soon in Caracas, Venezuela. Venezuela, the land of Chavez and Bolivar.
Yes, that'd be excellent. I wish and hope that everyone on the call here could join us in Venezuela in July and come and see what it's like to see popular democracy, to see the people of Venezuela mobilizing and fighting every day against criminal U.S. sanctions. So I do have a few folks that are joining us that had some closing greetings. One of whom I know is joining us not from his usual place. So Roger, if you'd like to say anything, just raise your hand and I'll promote you in the webinar. But I did want to share an article written by Roger Harris of the Task Force of the Americas entitled "The Biggest Obstacle to Free and Fair Elections in Venezuela is the United States." It's been published on Counterpunch, and I encourage people to read it and share it as an important resource. Again, we'll see increasing rhetoric throughout Western media about Venezuela's elections and predicting, fraud and predicting that if President Maduro wins, it is not through the will of the people of Venezuela, which we know is a lie, which is a manipulation from the U.S. government and their allies. So this article is a very important tool in combating that. Sounds good. And next we will, I'll share the article in the chat and encourage people to share it as well. And we have with us here Janine Solanki, who's joining from Mobilization Against War and Occupation, MAWO, here in Vancouver. Janine, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or evening, whatever time it is for you. On behalf of Mobilization Against War and Occupation, MAWO, here in Vancouver, I want to thank the organizers for bringing us all together in defense of our Venezuelan sisters and brothers, and thanks to all the speakers who brought their analysis and information. I think, now more than ever, we see around the world that we need a world of more peace, of more justice, more fairness. And we are seeing that Venezuela is setting that example. We're living in a time when we're seeing now almost 8 months of genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. And we see the country that is threatening Venezuela, the country that is sanctioning Venezuela, the country that is trying to demonize Venezuela, is even more showing that they are the true terrorists. We know that the United States government is responsible for a genocide right now in Gaza. They've authorized billions of dollars sending weapons and bombs and fighter jets to kill people in Gaza. Whereas when we look to Venezuela, we see a country that has officially recognized the state of Palestine and established diplomatic relations with Palestine since 2009. We, of course, are seeing headlines of more and more countries today that are finally recognizing Palestine. But we have to remember that Venezuela has been leading that charge and leading the cause of peace for many, many years. So from here in Vancouver, with our Venezuelan friends and with people across Canada and the US, I want to give our greetings and say thank you for joining today, for standing up for the cause of peace and justice. We need more Venezuelas in the world, and hands off Venezuela and end the sanctions on Venezuela. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine, for sharing that greeting. I've gotten a few messages in the chat that some folks here are participating in rallies at the same time that they are joining us here online. So they won't be able to give greetings, but it's good to hear. And thank you everyone for joining us for this 39th consecutive monthly picket action and the first to be organized by the Venezuela Solidarity Network. I did put in the chat the form to join the network, and our next, the 40th online picket and webinar will be taking place on June 25th. So mark that in your calendars. We'll go ahead and begin promoting people into the Zoom space who would like to join our group photo. This means being able to turn on your camera, we'll chant together, and we'll take a screenshot. If I'm going to begin promoting people, if you would like to receive an invitation to join the group photo, then you can go ahead and raise your hand if you haven't received one yet, and I will make sure that you do. It will just take me a minute. Again, I really encourage people to also put in their calendars for June 24th, which will be this week of action in solidarity with Venezuela and against U.S. intervention in Venezuela, in which people from around the world will stand with our brothers and sisters in New York, who will be delivering a petition against having the United States interfere in Venezuela's internal affairs and investigate these assassination attempts against President Maduro. I think I've initially sent the invitations to most folks. So let's see if anyone else hasn't received an invitation and you'd like to join our group photo, then go ahead and raise your hand. Oh, I see some here. Okay. Try again. And what will happen is a message will come up on your screen that will say, would you like to be promoted as a panelist? And so if you say yes, you'll be able to turn on your camera and join us here in the Zoom space. I've got some hands still, but you do have to say yes to the message that pops up on your screen. Perhaps it will go to the 3 dots. If that happens, then try and find the note. So I'm going to try. There's still 3 people with their hands up here, so I'm going to try and get them into the Zoom space. I'll also, hey, hola, take the opportunity to say that we are very grateful to our translators today. Anna and Salome, who have joined us. It has made it possible for us to have this bilingual webinar. I hope that in the future we can even do more languages, but for now we are very glad that it's been possible to have it with an English and Spanish, and really has helped the full participation of everybody. It's really good to see all of you. I still have a few hands up. So let's see. Paolo and Omar, I'm not sure. You have to say yes. Anyways, okay. Well, we did our best, perhaps. And so I encourage people to turn on your cameras if you can. I know some people might be out and running to the closest space that they can, the quiet area. Okay. So we'll go ahead and take our group photo. It's good to see you all. Again, thank you very much to Roy Lopez Rivas, Camilla Fabri Saab, and William CAMACARO for tonight. Oh, here's some more folks. I'll put up my sign. Maybe we'll do the side. And you can likely also unmute. I'm going to go ahead and turn off language interpretation. And we can all speak together. Okay. Let's all raise our voices. United. U.S. hands off Venezuela.
U.S. hands off Venezuela.
Hands off Venezuela.
No to sanctions on Venezuela.
No to sanctions on Venezuela.
U.S. hands off Venezuela.
U.S. hands
U.S. hands off Venezuela.
USA hands off Venezuela.
Well, thank you all for turning on your cameras and joining us. It's very good to see all your faces joining from different parts of Canada and North America and around the world. We will see you at the next Picket Action and webinar, which will feature Carlos Ron, Venezuela's Vice Minister for North America at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, among other speakers. That's June 25th. Mark that in your calendars. And then June 24th, kicking off days of action in defense of Venezuela's sovereignty with an action in New York City and hopefully others across North America. And please join the Venezuela Solidarity Network. Viva Venezuela!
Viva!
Viva!